The Mix Flip is Xiaomi's first ever flip-style foldable smartphone, and it's already in the global market. In the box, you'll find the device itself, a 2-piece hardshell case, a 6-amp charging cable, and a 67-watt charging block. Its global price sits at €1,300, and it only comes in one variant with 12 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage. It might seem pricey at first, but 512 gig versions of the top-end Samsung and Motorola flip phones come in at around the same price. You can certainly pick up a better bar-styled smartphone for that asking price, but what you're paying for here is foldable technology and a secondary display, and that second screen certainly complements its design. The Mix Flip comes in just two different colors. There's black and purple, and both of them have a matte finish. I have the black variant, and its bottom half glass backplate is in perfect symmetry with its top half cover screen, which is protected by Xiaomi's shield glass. Both halves are equal in size, and they both have the same subtle quad curves, which wrap into the flat aluminum side rails. The side rails have a glossy finish, so it's going to pick up quite a few fingerprint smudges. It would have been nice to have seen matte frames over here, especially considering that the hinge has a matte finish. The dual link hinge is made of stainless steel, and there's some Leica branding slapped on top, which we'll get to a little later. The hinge has been certified to last for up to 500,000 folds, and it can hold itself nicely at any position between 45 and 120 degrees. One of its biggest drawbacks compared to other flip phones is that it lacks any form of water and dust certification, which doesn't exactly justify its price. It does, however, feel very comfortable to hold thanks to its curved back, rounded corners, weight, and thickness, though it's slightly heavier and thicker than the competition, coming in at 192 grams, 7.6mm when unfolded, and 16mm when folded. The camera design is naturally quite different to other Xiaomi devices and more in line with other flip phones, because once you tap on the side-mounted fingerprint sensor, you'll notice the cover screen goes all around those two cameras. The bezels around the cover screen are quite slim and symmetrical, and those back cameras can also be used for face unlock. Face unlock also works when you simply unfold the device to the foldable screen, which also boasts slimmer bezels when compared to other flip phones. The crease is also barely noticeable, especially when using the device as you usually would, and the inner display is made from ultra-thin glass. The main screen is a massive 6.86-inch 12-bit AMOLED display with a 1.5K screen resolution and a 1 to 120Hz LTPO refresh rate. It also has a 240Hz touch sampling rate, to 160Hz PWM dimming, and a very impressive 3000 nits of peak brightness. But what's even more impressive is that the 4.01-inch AMOLED cover screen benefits from a lot of the same display specs. It too is a 12-bit panel with a 1.5K resolution that produces the same 460 pixels per inch, has a 120Hz refresh rate, and the same 3000 nits of brightness. For a bit of perspective, the Z Flip 6 has a smaller inner and outer screen, only has a high refresh rate on its inner display, and its outer cover screen has a much lower screen brightness and resolution. What makes this flip so special is that it utilizes its entire top back half for its display, which spills around and even goes in between its cameras. Not many flips look like this, and it's certainly an eye-catcher that many of my friends and family have been seriously impressed with. If you do land up purchasing one, I can assure you it's going to be a bit of a head turn. So while other flips might outperform the Mix Flip in certain areas such as waterproofing for example, the Mix Flip more than makes up for it when it comes to its displays and foldable usability. There's an outer screen section in the settings menu which allows you to customize the lock screen with some pretty unique designs. Add and remove widgets for on-the-go information, and decide which apps to include on the cover screen. You can use different social media apps on the outer display, watch a YouTube video, and even play a game. But it only uses the portion next to the camera sensors, and your widgets are always visible. Unfortunately, these apps are very limited, and we just have to hope that more third-party developers will jump on board. That said, I don't think I'd ever really find myself in a situation where I'd rather use the cover screen instead of the main display for anything other than the cameras, which we'll get to in a minute, or as an always-on display. There's no bedside clock mode when putting the device in tent mode, and if you want the always-on display visible when in tent mode, then you have to unlock the device while folded, unfold it into tent mode, and then lock it again. That's quite a lot of work just to have a bedside clock. It's a bit disappointing that Xiaomi haven't pushed the Mix Flip to its full potential here. But being able to half fold your phone isn't just about the cover screen, but the main screen too. When in hover mode, the device again doesn't allow for a bedside clock mode, and the always on display pops up anywhere on the top or bottom half of the screen, which kind of defeats the purpose of half folding your device while it's locked. When unlocked, however, you can use the bottom half for typing or for splitting up the YouTube interface when watching a video. So foldable features aren't exactly groundbreaking when it comes to Xiaomi's first flip phone. But you gotta remember that when modern flip phones first launched, the main purpose of them was to be able to fold up your phone to protect your inner display when popping it in your bag. And since then, they have become more about being able to use your back main cameras as selfie cameras, which the Mix Flip can do right from the cover screen. However, there are a lot of limitations when doing so. You can't use all of the main camera modes, only video, photo, portraits, and pocket mirror. You can't use the main camera's physical flash, so you're stuck with the on-screen flash. You can't use the telephoto camera in portrait mode, not that you would actually want to do that. Video mode is limited to 4K, even though the main camera is capable of 8K resolution, and when in 4K, you can only use up to 30 FPS, even though there is a 60 FPS option. You can use an outer screen preview when using the main screen to take photos so that your subject can see what's going on. It would help if my subject didn't go missing, but unfortunately, when you switch to video, you cannot use the outer screen preview. The main screen has a top-centered punch hole which houses a 32 megapixel selfie camera, but like I just mentioned, we can also use the back main cameras to take selfies. The main camera of course takes a more balanced shot when compared to the selfie camera, but the selfie camera has a wider field of view and it honestly takes a very good photo. Portrait modes come out just as good when using the selfie compared to the main camera, but the main camera produces a much better snap at night, especially when using the screen flash. It's just disappointing that you can't use the physical flash when using the main back cameras for selfies.
What's up guys, this is TechNick recording a 4K 60 FPS selfie video on the brand new Xiaomi Mix Flip. Yes, you heard that right, 4K 60 FPS selfie video, not even some Xiaomi flagships like the 14T Pro, actually have 4K selfie video at 60 frames per second. Let me know your thoughts of the video quality as well as the microphone quality.
I was very impressed with 4K 60 FPS selfie video, especially since the main camera limits 4K video to 30 FPS when using it for selfies. And while you can't use the main camera for bokeh video, the selfie video limits it to 1080p. And just like with photos, the main camera produces much better video when recording at night. You'll only really benefit from using the main cameras as selfie cameras at night. Otherwise, the selfie camera is actually very good. The only reason I'd use back cameras for selfie cameras on a phone such as this is to be able to utilize the back ultra-wide camera, which unfortunately the Mix Flip does not have. What it does have, however, is a partnership with Leica, which means that we have the option of Leica Vibrant or Leica Authentic, much like we've seen on all recent Xiaomi flagships, though there isn't as much of a difference as we've seen on other Xiaomi devices. With the Mix Flip, Vibrance is a bit brighter and looks slightly more pleasing, which is what most users would likely stick to. Xiaomi have also included two different portrait modes, namely Leica Portrait and Master Portrait. Again, there isn't too much of a difference between the two on the Mix Flip, aside from skin tone. But when using the telephoto camera, I found myself leaning more toward Master Portrait. Neither modes are perfect when it comes to edge detection, but my son's hair is definitely quite a challenge. You have to use movie mode for bokeh video, and on the Mix Flip, you cannot adjust movie mode's aspect ratio. Rec 2020 Master Cinema video can be recorded in 4K when using regular video, and the main and telephoto cameras also benefit from Dolby Vision video. The main camera is not exactly the best sensor you could ask for, but it is still a very capable flagship camera. That being a 50 megapixel Light Fusion 800 camera with a 1 in 1.55 inch sensor size, a wide f1.7 aperture, and optical image stabilization. You can use the main camera to shoot native 50 megapixel photos, but bin down images offer more dynamic range, and I was rather impressed with how it performed when taking photos at night. The main camera can shoot very slow 960 fps slow motion video at 1080p resolution, and yes, you can also shoot at 1920 fps, though it's limited to 720p. Just like with other Xiaomi flagships, we have steady video, but it still crops in and it's still limited to full HD resolution. That said, it's not really needed as things come out just as stable when recording at 4K 60 FPS. We do have 8K video, but it's limited to the main camera, caps out at 24 FPS, and it's very jittery. 8K video isn't perfect at night either, but we do have a 4K night video mode, which certainly brights things up, but in turn affects detail. It's not the most incredible main camera, but it's probably the best when it comes to flip phones. And I'd probably say the same thing about its telephoto camera. Since it's not just the telephoto, but a 50 megapixel floating telephoto camera, which lets you get a lot closer to a subject for 9cm macro photography. And when in super macro mode, it does just that, with impeccable detail at a 2x zoom range. You can also take photos at native 50 megapixels, but again, bin shots come out quite a bit more polished. I was very impressed by the level of detail at a 5x zoom range, but detail starts to drop off at 10x, and 20x zoom struggles quite a bit, which is the max zoom here. 2x and 5x zoom ranges come out fantastic at night until you realize the device switched to the main camera when in night mode, even though I disabled the adaptive telephoto option in settings. So I had to test out the same shot with night mode off, which does make use of the telephoto camera, and since it lacks OIS, things come out looking quite a bit worse. So it's probably safe to say that you don't necessarily need a telephoto camera when zooming in at night. 10x zoom also sticks to the main camera, but the telephoto camera is used when taking a 20x zoom shot, regardless of which mode you're in. The telephoto does, however, take some very impressive video, and just like with the main camera, it can also record 4K 60 FPS video. It's rather detailed and surprisingly smooth, considering there is no optical image stabilization. But things aren't quite as smooth at night. There's a lot of grain, and light noise isn't handled the best when recording video with the telephoto sensor. It's nice to see Xiaomi include a floating telephoto here, but I don't think I'd want it instead of an ultra-wide camera if I had to choose. You can always zoom in digitally using a main camera, but you can never get a wide field of view without having a physical ultra-wide camera. The Xiaomi Mix Flip ships with HyperOS out the box, which is skinned over Android 14. If you have used a recent Xiaomi device, you'll feel quite at home with it. Customization is simple. There's things such as large folders, the app drawer is categorized, and all of Google's goodies are packed into the global variants such as Google Discover and Gemini. Gemini Live is now free, and it's crazy how advanced AI has become. Is the Xiaomi Mix Flip good?
The Xiaomi Mix Flip seems to have some awesome features. People are especially raving about the battery life and the cover screen. The cameras are also supposed to be really good. Plus, it's a stylish flip phone, so it's got that going for it.
Circle the search with Google is also on the way, and there are other noteworthy AI features too, such as AI interpreter, notes recorder, and image editing, though it's not quite perfect. We should also see 4 years of major software updates and 5 years of security updates, which is more than enough before your next upgrade. The Mix Flip has the largest battery capacity I have ever seen inside of a flip phone, coming in at a whopping 4,780 mAh, and it can charge extremely fast too, thanks to very fast 67 watt wide charging. But unfortunately, it skips out on wireless charging, which is something its competitors seem to pack in. The Mix Flip makes use of 12 gigs of LPDDR5X RAM, and memory extension can add another 8 gigs. It also uses 512 gigs of UFS 4.0 storage, but Xiaomi have been kind enough to give us an extra 16 gigs of onboard storage for free. Unlike Xiaomi's recent T-series devices, the Mix Flip sticks with the 4nm run Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 CPU, which is the same as Samsung's offering and quite a bit more power than what Motorola has to offer. So it's no surprise to see it perform exceptionally well across multiple different benchmark tests. It's also no surprise to see it perform well when gaming, especially while playing graphically demanding games such as Genshin Impact. But the new Snapdragon 8 Gen 4 chipset is about to release, so you won't have Qualcomm's latest flagship chipset for very long. That said, I doubt you'll notice much of a difference with the new chipset when running mobile games, since current chipsets already max out mobile gaming performance. I was slightly disappointed to see the device cap Real Racing 3 out at 60 FPS, even though the game is capable of running at a high frame rate. And I was equally as disappointed to see Call of Duty Mobile limit its frame rate to 90 FPS, even though its cap is 120 FPS. The device can certainly handle a higher frame rate, it just hasn't been updated to do so yet. The Mix Flip also packs in a new ultra-large 3D vapor chamber for cooling, but I did notice the device get quite hot while running benchmarks and playing games, especially on the left side of the device when in landscape mode, where my fingers rest on the cover screen. It also makes use of Bluetooth 5.4, NFC, Wi-Fi 7, dual SIM 5G, an IR blaster, a USB 2.0 Type-C port, flagship level haptic feedback, and dual stereo speakers with Dolby Atmos.
Recon standing by. Repeat, UAV recon standing by. Predator missile on standby. Lost the lead.
The Xiaomi Mix Flip is a very solid device when compared to the competition. It packs in all the latest and greatest hardware, and after a couple updates, I have no doubt that it will perform like a champion. It might lack wireless charging, but it makes up for it with very fast wired charging and offers the largest battery capacity I have ever come across in a flip phone. I've had a very good user experience with its software, which is layered with AI features. It might not have an IP certification, but I have been very impressed with its premium build quality, and its design is stunning thanks to its all-screen cover display and flagship leading main screen. It has a few neat foldable features, but it has potential to do so much more. And while its camera system is fantastic, it would really benefit from an ultra-wide camera instead of a telephoto camera. If it's a choice between telephoto and ultra-wide on a phone like this, it's gonna be ultra-wide every single time. But other than cameras, it would have been nice to have seen wireless charging and waterproofing. That said, this is probably the best flip phone in terms of displays and battery, which is a lot to say considering this is Xiaomi's first ever flip-style foldable smartphone. I just can't wait to see what they do next, because the Xiaomi Mix Flip has the potential to be the very best. As always, this is TechNick, and I'll catch you in the next one.